The moon had never looked so calm. From the viewport of the Odyssey 9, the gray plains of Mare Imbrium stretched endlessly, an ocean of silence bathed in the cold reflection of Earth's distant glow. Commander Elias Grant stared at it, his reflection faint in the glass, helmet in hand, jaw set, eyes heavy with the exhaustion only isolation could breed. Telemetry stable. Lander integrity at 98%, said Dr. Serena Holt, NASA's lead geologist, her voice crisp but weary. She floated beside him, securing a datapad to the wall. We're green for descent. Grant nodded, still watching the surface. Copy that. Prep the crew. We make history today. History. That word had lost its weight somewhere between the budget cuts and the half-forgotten dreams of the Artemis generation. The world had moved on from the moon. Mars colonies drew headlines now, but when radar imaging from the Lunar Recon Orbiter showed a vast, symmetrical anomaly, buried under Imbrium's crust, a perfect, geometric pattern miles wide, NASA dusted off its courage and sent a team, 5 humans, to explore what no one could explain. The mission brief called it Operation Echo, but the media, those still paying attention, dubbed it the Forgotten Vault. The descent burned with controlled fury. Thrusters roared, then dimmed into whispers as the Odyssey settled onto the regolith with a muted thud. Dust billowed outward in slow motion, curling into long, graceful tendrils that fell like snow. Grant's gloved hand reached for the comm switch. Houston, Odyssey 9 has landed. Tranquility to Imbrium, 50 years apart. Feels good to be home. Applause crackled faintly over the radio. Then the flat, professional tone of Flight Director Mason Clark replaced it. Copy, Odyssey. You are go for surface operations. And Commander, be careful down there. The airlock hissed open. Lunar dust sparkled in the helmet lights like powdered glass. Grant stepped out first, boots pressing into a world untouched for eons. The silence was total. Even radio chatter felt intrusive here. Behind him followed Holt. Then Lieutenant Aaron Vega, mission engineer and ex-Space Force officer, built like he'd been carved out of gravity itself. Dr. Noah Lee, systems specialist, carried the scanning array, and Dr. Harper Rhodes, the youngest of them, was the xenogeologist, the dreamer among them, eyes wide with childlike awe. Still can't believe it, Harper whispered. We're walking on the moon again. Enjoy it while you can, Vega muttered. Once we start drilling, it'll stop feeling poetic real fast. They reached the coordinates 3 hours later, a ridge overlooking the anomaly site. Holt unfolded the ground-penetrating radar array, her movements precise, almost reverent. The first scans came in, and every heart skipped a beat. Below them, buried under 40 meters of basalt, was an enormous structure. Perfectly circular, nearly 3 kilometers in diameter, its outline precise enough to shame any natural formation. The readings showed metallic density, far beyond what any lunar meteorite could explain. Those aren't geological layers, Holt murmured. They're panels. Something built this? Grant studied the screen, a shadow crossing his face. We dig here. Vega, set the perimeter drones. Lee, start the core drill. Hours bled into the long lunar day. The drill bit chewed through dust and rock, spitting fragments that glimmered like obsidian. Then, at a depth of 20 meters, the vibrations changed. A hollow tone echoed through the ground, a low metallic hum that vibrated through their boots. Did you feel that? Harper asked, voice trembling slightly. Before anyone could answer, the drill stopped. It hadn't jammed. It had hit something smooth. Grant floated the inspection camera down the borehole. The image that flickered back made his pulse quicken. The camera panned across a vast, seamless black surface, matte and flawless, curving away into darkness. No seams, no dust, no cracks. Just silence. Jesus, Vega muttered. That's no rock. Seal the hole, Grant ordered immediately. We'll run resonance scans before we go any further. But it was already too late. A tremor rippled through the ground, subtle at first, then growing. The dust around them danced. Instruments spiked, electromagnetic bursts, seismic ripples, radiation spikes that made Lee's console flicker and die. Commander, Holt shouted. We've triggered something. Energy output's off the charts. Then came the sound, an impossible sound in the vacuum of the moon. Not through air, but through the suits, through their bones. A low resonant tone that made the visors fog and the heart race. Lee staggered back. It's transmitting. Direct EM modulation across the full spectrum. A blinding pulse erupted from the borehole. The dust rose in a geyser of light and shadow. When it cleared, the ground had caved in, revealing a yawning shaft that descended into darkness. And from that darkness came a whisper, not sound, something deeper. A presence, brushing against thought. A pressure behind the eyes. Grant's breath quickened. His HUD flickered with static. For a split second, he swore he saw shapes moving inside the shaft. Tall, graceful silhouettes shimmering like heat haze. "Everyone, fall back," he barked. "Back to the lander." They stumbled across the ridge, hearts pounding, instruments screaming warnings. But then, just as suddenly as it began, the tremors stopped. Silence reclaimed the moon. Hours later, back aboard Odyssey 9, they transmitted the data to Houston. Clark's voice returned after a tense 10-minute delay. "Commander, your last transmission cut out during the seismic event. Confirm the anomaly breach was contained?" Grant hesitated. "Negative, Houston." The surface collapsed. "We've got a vertical cavity nearly 100 meters deep. No radiation leakage, but we think we exposed something down there. Something artificial." Static filled the line, then a heavy pause. "Understood, Odyssey. Hold position. Satellite teams are redirecting observation." "Don't engage further until we assess," Grant nodded grimly. "Copy that." He cut the feed and looked at his crew. Holt's hands were trembling slightly. Vega stared at the floor, jaw tight. Harper looked pale, her voice barely above a whisper. "Commander, what if we just woke something up?" Grant didn't answer. He turned back to the viewport, staring at the crater, the faint glimmer of light still pulsing deep within it. The moon had always been silent. But now, as Earth rose over the horizon, he felt something new stirring in that silence, something watching. The crater looked like a wound. From orbit, satellite feeds showed the Odyssey 9 parked at its edge, a white speck beside a scar of impossible geometry. The shaft they'd uncovered pulsed faintly, soft luminescence deep below the surface, cycling, in slow rhythm, like the heartbeat of something ancient. "Telemetry from the cavity is erratic," said Flight Director Mason Clark, frowning at the readouts in Houston. "We're getting EM spikes and gravimetric fluctuations. That's not supposed to happen on the moon." A technician nearby swallowed hard. "Sir, what are we looking at?" Clark's jaw tightened. Something that shouldn't exist. Down on the lunar surface, Commander Elias Grant was watching that same light from the edge of the breach. His face, lit only by the glow from his HUD, was drawn and hollow. The moon was never supposed to move, never supposed to feel alive. But every few minutes he felt the faintest tremor beneath his boots, like a whisper through stone. "Serena, talk to me," he said. Dr. Serena Holt knelt beside the portable spectrometer, its readouts blinking erratically. "I've never seen energy signatures like this," she said. "No known isotope decay pattern. Whatever's down there, it's running on something we can't identify." "Could it be an alien power source?" asked Dr. Harper Rhodes, her voice tight. "Could be a resonance field," muttered Dr. Noah Lee, resetting a sensor. "Or a quantum interference effect. But—" He looked up, the reflection of the glowing crater in his visor. "It feels intentional." Grant exhaled slowly. "We're pulling data, not theories. Vega, check the perimeter. No one goes near that shaft without my say." Lieutenant Aaron Vega gave a curt nod and moved off, scanning the ridgeline. His rifle, a precautionary EM projector designed for asteroid debris control, hung useless at his side. Against what, he wondered? Would it even matter out here? 4 hours later, Houston broke radio silence. Odyssey 9. This is Houston flight. Mason Clark's voice was calm, but its steadiness was rehearsed. "We've analyzed your transmissions. The anomaly you uncovered matches no known geological or artificial signal. However, Seismic imaging suggests the structure extends over 20 kilometers. It's hollow. 20? Grant repeated, stunned. That's half the size of Manhattan. Affirmative. Orders are to deploy the tether drone and map the cavity. You are not authorized to descend at this time. Grant looked out toward the crater again. It seemed deeper now, the light shifting slightly, like something stirring below. He hesitated. Then, "Copy that, Houston. Deploying tether drone." They assembled the probe under the harsh light of the sun. The machine, nicknamed Argus, was a slender titanium sphere with 100 sensors, cameras, and a carbon nanofiber tether that could reach a kilometer deep. "Argus is online," Lee said. "Visual feed coming through." The camera flickered to life, showing the interior of the shaft. Smooth black walls, seamless, curving inward. They glistened faintly, almost breathing with the pulsing light below. "Descending," Holt said quietly. 10 meters. 50. 200. The feed was silent except for the faint hum of the tether. Then at 500 meters, the signal wavered. "Interference building," Lee muttered. "Magnetic. Distortion increasing. Wait, what the hell?" The image shifted. Something moved across the lens. For half a second, it looked like a handprint, not pressed against the camera, but forming within the air itself, rippling like liquid glass. "Did everyone see that?" Harper gasped. Grant leaned closer to the monitor. "Freeze frame. Enhance contrast." The image stabilized, revealing faint impressions carved into the black surface. Symbols. Holt's breath caught. "Those are markings. Geometric, repeating, like writing." "Language?" Lee asked. "Or a warning," Vega muttered darkly. Before anyone could respond, Argus shuddered violently. Static tore through the feed. The sensors screamed, power readings spiked, heat signatures flared, and then the entire monitor went black. "Argus, respond!" Holt shouted. "Telemetry!" "Cut!" A sudden flash erupted from the crater, bright enough to sear through their visors. Every instrument screamed in overload. "Commander!" Harper cried out. "Something's coming up!" The ground split open. A column of blinding light shot upward, dust exploding outward in a halo of shimmering particles. The lunar surface buckled, and for a heartbeat, they saw movement within the light, shifting silhouettes, tall and thin, impossibly graceful. The shapes flickered like mirages, each frame wrong in ways the human brain could barely comprehend. "Everyone back to the ship!" Grant roared. They sprinted through the dust, magnetic boots hammering across the regolith. Behind them, the light grew brighter, its pulse matching their heartbeats. Grant reached the airlock first, slamming the override. One by one, they tumbled inside, gasping for breath even though the air was filtered and calm. Then came the silence again. But it wasn't the same silence as before. Something had changed. "Houston, this is Odyssey 9, Grant said once comms stabilized. "We've had a breach event. Unknown energy discharge from the anomaly. Possible biological movement. Non-human morphology. We're sealing down operations until further instructions." The 10-minute delay stretched into an eternity. Then Clark's voice returned, calm but clipped. "Understood, Odyssey. All satellite feeds just went dark over your position. We're seeing interference across multiple orbital networks. Until we can re-establish stable telemetry, you are officially on radio blackout protocol." "Say again, Houston?" Grant said. Static. "Houston, confirm?" Only the crackle of dead air answered. The crew sat in the dim light of the control module. Outside, the moon remained still, but every few minutes their instruments picked up faint vibrations beneath the hull. Harper broke the silence first. "It's not a geological structure," she whispered. "It's alive, or it was. We woke it up." Vega scoffed. "You're saying the moon's alive?" "No," she said softly. "Not the moon. What's under it?" Grant stared out the viewport. Down in the crater, the glow was spreading, webs of light crawling across the ground like veins of molten silver. They pulsed outward, stretching toward the horizon. "Commander," Lee said shakily, "if that energy field keeps expanding, it'll reach our landing zone's reactor core." Meaning it could overload. "And take us with it." Holt's voice trembled. "We can't leave yet. If we do, we risk carrying whatever that field is into orbit. We have to contain it." Grant turned to her sharply. "How?" "We collapse the shaft," she said. "Use the seismic charges we brought for sub-drilled testing. If we bury the entrance, maybe we can disrupt the energy flow." Vega frowned. "That's a lot of maybes." "It's the only chance we've got," Grant said. "Prep the charges." They suited up again. The trek to the crater felt longer this time, as if the moon itself resisted their movement. Every step stirred faint pulses beneath their boots. At the crater's edge, the glow was stronger now, radiating upward like breath from some buried furnace. Holt and Vega moved quickly, planting the seismic charges in a ring. Grant stood watch at the ridge, staring down into the abyss. Deep below, something shimmered. An outline, vast and humanoid, sleeping beneath translucent walls. Its shape pulsed with slow, rhythmic light, and for one heartbeat, Grant could swear it looked back. "Commander?" Holt's voice crackled in his comms. "Charges ready." He tore his eyes away. "Detonate!" The explosions ripped through the stillness, muffled and strange in the vacuum. The ridge shuddered, dust erupted in plumes, and then, for a moment, there was nothing. Then came the shockwave. The energy pulsed outward, through the ground, through their suits. Every display went white, their comms filled with static, and beneath it, a voice. Not words, but resonance, a tone that spoke directly into their minds. "Why did you wake us?" Grant fell to his knees, clutching his head. Holt screamed. Vega's visor cracked from the pressure. Harper's eyes were wide, tears floating in zero-G inside her helmet, and then the light went out. When they woke, they were inside the Odyssey. The ship's systems had rebooted on backup power. The crater was gone, completely sealed, like nothing had ever been there. Grant sat up, breathing hard. "Status?" Lee checked the readouts. "Minimal damage, but... Commander..." "What?" The moon's magnetic field just spiked tenfold. And Earth's magnetosphere is fluctuating in sync. They all turned to the viewport. High above the lunar surface, Earth hung like a blue jewel, and across its surface, faint lines of light began to appear, glowing in the same rhythm as the crater once had. Holt whispered the words none of them wanted to say. "It's spreading." The moon no longer slept. From the Odyssey Nami's viewport, the crew watched as streaks of light spread across the lunar surface, thin veins glowing faint blue beneath the dust. The illumination pulsed in waves, syncing with the heartbeat of Earth itself. Commander Elias Grant stood motionless, helmet off, the cabin lights flickering in the unnatural glow. "We buried it," he muttered. "So why the hell is it still growing?" Dr. Serena Holt's voice was faint, hollow. "We didn't stop it. We connected it. The charges must have triggered some kind of activation sequence. The energy field, whatever it is, it's not lunar. It's using the moon as a relay." Lieutenant Aaron Vega slammed a fist against the console. "A relay to what?" Holt's gaze lifted slowly toward the viewport. "Earth." The word hung in the air, heavier than gravity. In Houston, the control room was chaos. Monitors flickered with erratic data, gravitational anomalies, geomagnetic surges, power grid failures across multiple continents. The moon's surface shimmered with geometric light patterns visible even to the naked eye. "Sir, we're getting mass fluctuations in the Van Allen belts," a technician reported. "They're destabilizing." Flight Director Mason Clark rubbed a trembling hand across his face. "Get me NORAD and Space Command. I want orbital scans on every frequency." "Already on it, sir, but..." The technician swallowed. "There's more. Something's..." Responding. "From where?" She hesitated. "From beneath the Pacific." The room went silent. Back aboard the Odyssey, the crew struggled to maintain comms. But the data streams were dying one by one. "Signal interference at 100%, said Dr. Noah Lee, his face pale in the glow of failing screens. "We've lost direct contact with Earth." "Then we're blind," Vega growled. "We can't stay up here, Commander. If the moon's destabilizing, Grant cut him off. We're not running, not yet. Holt, you said the moon's acting as a relay. Can we shut it down?" Holt hesitated. "Maybe. If we overload the Odyssey's fusion reactor and channel it into the lunar surface through the drill array, we could induce a feedback loop. It might sever the energy bridge, might?" Vega barked. "You mean we blow ourselves up and hope it takes the alien Wi-Fi with it?" Grant met his eyes. "If this spreads to Earth, billions die. That's not a debate, Lieutenant." Vega looked away, jaw tight. "Then let's do it fast." They suited up again. Every step outside felt heavier, the dust clinging to their boots like ash. The glow beneath the surface was stronger now, forming lines and spirals across the plains, as if something beneath the moon's crust was etching its way out. As they reached the drilling site, the ground trembled again. Holt steadied herself, her breath quick. "Seismic activity's increasing. Core temperature's up by 50 degrees. Lee checked his scanner. "That's not heat, that's life sign variation. Something's moving under there." Before anyone could react, the crater cracked open again. This time, the light was blinding. From the fissure rose a figure, not solid but sculpted from energy. It towered above them, shifting between forms, human, insect, avian, each one ghosting into the next. Its voice came not through sound, but through thought, pressing against every neuron in their minds. "You trespass upon the vault of memory." Grant staggered backward, pain ripping through his skull. "Identify yourself," he gasped. "We are the architects. We shaped this world before yours began. The moon was our prison, and you have broken the seal." Holt's voice trembled. "Prison? Why would you be imprisoned?" The entity's form rippled, and for a heartbeat, its face resembled hers, her own eyes, cold and ancient. "Because we remembered too much." The ground convulsed. Lightning, pure energy discharge, arced across the surface, striking the Odyssey in the distance. Sparks flew into the void. "Commander!" Vega shouted. "If we're doing this, it has to be now." Grant gritted his teeth, forcing his gaze away from the glowing being. Holt linked the reactor. "Lee, route full power to the core drill." "Copy!" The hum of machinery built to a roar. Blue plasma surged through the cables, snaking toward the crater like lightning veins. The entity turned its faceless gaze upon them. "You cannot silence memory." "Watch us try," Grant growled. "Detonate the charge." The explosion was silent, a sphere of white expanding outward. The surface of the moon rippled like water under the blast. For one impossible moment, the stars themselves seemed to flicker. Then came the scream, an electromagnetic howl that shattered every system on the Odyssey. The glow beneath the surface fractured into 1,000 streams, collapsing inward. The entity's form twisted, breaking apart into shards of light that folded back into the fissure, and then silence. Real silence. Grant woke to the faint hiss of oxygen and the red glow of emergency lights. His suit was cracked, pressure alarms faint in his ears. "Serena." "Vega, Lee," he croaked. A faint voice answered. "Here." Holt was lying nearby, clutching her arm. Lee was slumped over the control console, barely conscious. Vega's helmet was shattered, his face bloodied but alive. "The reactor's gone," Holt whispered. "We used everything." Grant looked toward the viewport. The moon's surface was dark again, cold and lifeless. But Earth? Earth shone bright blue and whole. "Did we stop it?" Vega asked hoarsely. Grant watched the horizon where the faintest shimmer still lingered, like the afterimage of a dream. "Maybe," he said. "Maybe not." Hours later, the emergency beacon flickered to life. Houston's voice returned, faint but real. "Odyssey 9, this is Houston. We're reading you. Radiation levels are stable. Lunar energy anomalies have ceased. Repeat, the event is over." Grant closed his eyes, relief and grief mixing like static. "Copy, Houston. We're alive." "Good to hear it, Commander," Clark replied. His voice was tight, trembling. "You saved us all." "Whatever you did," It worked. Grant stared out at Earth, its clouds drifting slow and innocent. "Tell them to remember what happened here," he said quietly. "Tell them not to dig again." Understood. The transmission clicked off. The moon hung silent once more. The Odyssey 9's hull gleamed faintly in the sun. Below the surface, where once light had burned like a living pulse, darkness returned. But far beneath that quiet dust, deep inside the buried structure, something still glowed. A single chamber, intact. A single shape, curled within it. A figure of light and memory. And as Earth's reflection shimmered on the chamber's surface, the faintest echo drifted through the void, words spoken in no human tongue. Carried on electromagnetic whispers, we wait, until they forget again,